Joining me now, I have with me a old colleague, because we're getting to be senior scientists somehow. Um, can you do an audio check quick? Can you say something?
All right. How does this sound for you?
We have you just fine. There's always that question. I just realized your shirt is printed in some of your art.
Yes, I went and had a Hawaiian shirt made of some of the posters I did for the 2017 Great American Eclipse.
That is amazing. So, my guest is none other than Tyler Nordgren. If you have been to national parks and seen amazing retro images that look like the old travel bureau images that show that juxtaposition of our sky and our landscape, or well, heck, they're all around you in the image. He's the guy who does them. So can you tell everyone a little about yourself as a scientist as a starting point, and then we'll launch into the artwork?
Sure. Sure. So I've got a PhD in astronomy from Cornell. And I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, but astronaut turned into astronomer. And so I studied dark matter. I did my PhD using the VLA, which I got to do a poster for.
This is
And
the very large array down in New Mexico that is famous from movies like Independence Day and Contact.
Contact, yes. In fact, Contact was filming during my PhD observations. So in the movie, when you see Ellie Arroway looking at Vega, you're probably actually looking at my galaxies. So yeah, so that's and so I was an astronomer, went on to become a professor, and spent 17 years as a university astronomer in Southern California.
And somewhere along the lines, you, who was studying something that can't be seen, got interested in what's before our eyes. How did that transition occur?
So I did my PhD looking at dark matter using both the radio observations from the Very Large Array, the VLA, but also using Palomar, the Palomar 5-meter optical telescope in Southern California. And back in the 40s, when that was being built, it was between these two relatively tiny towns of Los Angeles and San Diego. But over time, light pollution became an issue with that observatory. And it was a big problem when I was there that has only gotten worse in the decades since. And so I was very aware of the night sky and how we could preserve it, the necessity of preserving it, and just how few of my students had ever actually seen the Milky Way. So this was something that more and more became a real issue for me, and something I care very much about.
Now, I grew up in Westford, Massachusetts, about
Um,
45 minutes outside of Boston, and our skies were pretty good. I could find Andromeda with my tiny telescope. I vaguely saw Halley's Comet, but making out the disk of the Milky Way was just not something that we could do, even from that farming town,
right.
because 45 minutes close to Boston was just too close. It wasn't until I was a grad student at Mcdonald Observatory that I saw the Milky Way in the United States for the first time. When was it for you that you finally got that amazing dark sky?
So I was a Boy Scout up in Oregon and Alaska. That's where I
Oh,
split my
wow.
childhood. So I saw the Milky Way on campouts in the Cascade Mountains. And then when I moved up to Alaska, it was the Northern Lights. I remember being outside at night in winter when it got dark and seeing the Northern Lights all around. So I've always spent my time out in sort of the very, very rural parts of the country. And as I became an astronomer, traveling to observatories in Australia, yeah, the Milky Way was just something I always saw. But current estimates based upon satellites looking at the distribution of city lights and artificial lights around the world are that something like 80% of the people in the US and Europe can no longer see the Milky Way from where they live. And if you think about historically for all but I'd say the last 100, 200 years, that Milky Way, that was something that everybody saw. It was up there like every moonless night, no matter where you lived on the planet. And now we live in a world where, for most people, especially for most people living in cities, unless you hunt it out, you'll never see it.
Yeah, and that's a bit heartbreaking. And it's not just the Milky Way we've lost. It's I went to graduate school at the University of Texas. This is apparently going to keep coming up during the stream. And and teaching observational astronomy from the roof of one of the buildings on campus. When I started graduate school in 96, we were still able to see the Nebula through binoculars, the beautiful little planetary nebula. But by the time that I was done teaching and moving to focus strictly on doing research in 2000, the Ring Nebula was gone.
Yeah. My first postdoc was in Flagstaff, Arizona at the US Naval Observatory and then Lowell Observatory. And Flagstaff is the first city in the world that had imposed lighting restrictions back in the 50s because of the observatories there. And so when I was there as a postdoc, you could stand on Route 66 downtown and look up and see the Milky Way. And when I got my university job in Southern California, I remember being told, "Oh, we've got you scheduled at night from 7 to 10 p.m. so that you can do astronomy." Because surely, astronomers must want to do astronomy at night. And I had
Yes.
all these plans for, okay, I'll lecture for an hour and then I'll take the students outside and we will see what I have just lectured on.
Yes.
And when I moved out there, and I remember the first clear night I was out there, I couldn't even make out a single constellation because of the light pollution. It was
Oh
like,
no.
I think I see two stars in Sagittarius, and okay, that orange thing is Mars. I know it's
Oh.
there, but I can't even show kids constellations, much less the Ring Nebula or the Andromeda or anything. So it was something. It hit me like a punch in the gut that I was now in a very different world, a world where essentially the night didn't exist beyond our own atmosphere.
And one of the places you can still go to see them isn't necessarily an observatory. Mcdonald Observatory is one of the largest tourist traps in the state of Texas. With oh my goodness, so many visitors every year, and it's worth going to.
Yes.
But there's places more common than that which you can go to, and these are the national parks. The national parks in the United States, for the most part, are really good at conserving not just the land, but also the sky. And you have amazing posters of observatories, other planets, and national parks scattered about around you. What was it about the national parks that pulled you in to see the
Uh,
sky from that location?
yeah, it probably isn't everyone that can point to a specific instant, a specific night that changed your life. But
Hmm.
but but I'm fortunate that I can. Um, I had just gotten tenure, and I had splurged and bought myself a digital camera. This was back in 2005, and I thought I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to go drive up to Yosemite National Park. It was only 7 hours away, and I'm just going to take photos. And one night up there in the campground, I saw a poster for an evening ranger program at the lodge that was about astronomy in the national parks. I thought, well, I'm an astronomer. This sounds interesting. And it was an outdoor amphitheater. And so, beautiful night sky.
Yeah.
And as I'm sitting there, I realized a couple of things. One, as it's getting darker and darker, you can see more and more stars, and the Milky Way is coming out. And I realized for most people, hey, this is probably the first time they've been someplace where they can see it. And then two, as this ranger is talking about why we can see the Milky Way, because as you said, for 100 years, the National Park Service had been preserving these landscapes. So no big developments, no shopping malls, no, none of this development that has blotted out the light elsewhere. Um, the crowd around me is oohing and awing at these pictures of galaxies and nebulae that the park ranger is showing during a slideshow that you can see through a telescope or a pair of binoculars if you're someplace dark, like
You
a
were
national
someplace
park.
dark watching a slideshow.
Yes. So okay, so there was that sort of irony going on there. But even with that slideshow, everything else around us was dark. And so you had this sky full of stars overhead. And it all sort of gelled in my and in fact, he then talked about why the parks had this, and that the parks had just put together a team of rangers and astronomers dedicated to measuring light pollution in the parks and trying to conserve the night sky. So all of this was happening at the same time. And I realized, wait a second, these are all my interests right here. It's
Yeah.
night sky, it's light pollution, it's seeing the Milky Way, it's communicating to the public. And if you want the public to be interested in space exploration and you know funding observatories and
Yeah.
spacecraft, here's the place to reach out to them. Here's the place to tell people this is what we can see. This is what we can learn about our universe. And you can see it with your own eyes here in a national park. And so I talked to the ranger afterwards. And from that day onward, I've been working with the national parks about night sky education and wrote a book, Stars Above, Earth Below, about astronomy in the national parks. And one of those illustrations for that book was a 1930s esque WPA poster, See the Milky Way. Half the park is after dark. And that poster changed my life. It is
And
now what I've become famous for.
And we'll get to that in just a moment. I want to take a second to do a bit of a station identification here. You are currently watching the CosmoQuest Hangoutathon 2020 on the Now Media Network or Now Media Radio or twitch.tv/CosmoQuestX. Wherever you are watching, you can ask us questions on Twitter using the hashtag #hat2020. We are in the process of streaming for 36 straight hours. And our goal is twofold. First of all, we are building a scale model of the solar system in Minecraft that you are free to help us explore. We will be going to the mine on the 49s to see how the progress is going. And the more important reason we're here is to raise money to keep CosmoQuest going into the next year. We are trying to raise $36,000, which is enough to make sure that we'll be okay through 2021 as long as we keep doing a standard amount of fundraising every month. It takes us $150,000 per year to bring you Astronomy Cast, CosmoQuest citizen science projects, the daily space, community coffee with science, all these things. Well, we have a staff, most of whom are part time, all of whom are offered benefits if they need them. And we want to take care of our people. And we want to provide a place where you can keep coming to learn science. To see how to donate, go to hangout.cosmoquest.org. We are tax deductible where the law allows through the Planetary Science Institute. All right, now back to it takes money to do all the things we do, and you took a jump that I have to admit was completely inspiring to me. I remember sitting on my sofa a number of years ago and getting the message from you in my inbox that you weren't going to be a prof anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing it was that night in the park that put you on the path to, hey, I also am a former professor that took the jump, quit my job,
Yeah.
and found myself here communicating science. So tell us your journey.
Oh, so back in 2009, 2010, in fact, 2009 was the International Year of Astronomy.
This is how we met.
Yes. And that was when my first poster that had come out of that book came out. Um, see the Milky Way in America's national parks, and park rangers that I had met on my sabbatical that wound up being the year before. I spent, gosh, 14 months traveling through the national parks, working with rangers and visitors and superintendents on all the ways that people could experience astronomy. But that poster captured so much interest amongst park rangers that they began to ask, well, hey, can I use this for my programs? And I said, sure, yeah, it's free to use. But hey, if anybody should ever ask you, can I buy that? Uh, why don't you pass that along to your bookstore, and
Hmm.
they can buy posters from me. And as the years went on, one poster became 10 posters, became 50, 60. I think I've done over 100 at this point. And it turned out I had a second business that I was running on weekends and nights while I was a professor by day. And eventually got to the point where I thought, my dean's beginning to have problems with this. He's starting to tell me I can't go and work with parks up in Alaska to promote night skies. Uh, what do I do? Do I continue as a professor, or do I let this thing that's really I'm educating and reaching out and touching thousands, if not more
Yeah.
people, millions of people per year. Let's see where that goes. And so in 2017, I made the decision that, yeah, this is probably going to be it. I need to go into business for myself. And gosh, that was terrifying. Um,
Yes.
yeah. But even in the midst of this pandemic, there has not been a day where I have looked back and said, "Gosh, I wish I had done something different." I've worked with national parks, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. I did a poster for the White House back in 2015 for President Obama's last astronomy night. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, it's and the posters that I did for the 2017 Great American Eclipse, they've been collected by the Smithsonian. So I, you know, so I really, how could I do anything different?
And it's such a hard jump to convince yourself to take. And this is where you were such an inspiration to me when I decided, no, I'm not going to do what everyone tells me you're supposed to do with a PhD. I'm going to leave being a professor. And so I don't know if you realize what an inspiration you were,
Oh,
but I'm now here to say that
oh,
I
thank
knew when I
you.
made the jump that I'd be okay and be a whole lot happier as it turned out.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that because for me too. When I was a graduate student at Cornell, one of the professors here was Carl Sagan,
Yeah.
and here the most famous astronomer alive at the time. And I still had professors and others, graduate students, tell me that if I wanted to go on into education, I'd be wasting my Cornell PhD.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I went on to teach at a small liberal arts university, and I felt like a failure for doing that. And then here I'm deciding to even quit that and become an artist. Yeah, no, I had to fight against that feeling for years, and there
Yeah.
is still a part of me that when I go back to Cornell, and I talk to my old professors, I kind of have to make excuses. Well, okay, I'm in the Smithsonian, in hopes that they'll think that I'm not a failure. But I am so much happier and doing what I'm so passionate about. And I'm so glad to hear the same thing from you, because you don't have to be a research one astrophysicist to make a difference in the world.
And I'm sharing out a link to that first book that started you out in our
Oh,
chat. And and so you made that jump. And one of the things I love about your website, and it's what I have written below your name on the screen, is that it lists you as the Space Art Travel Bureau. And you have this quintessential style that is the retro travel posters. And Astro Wise in the Twitch chat is asking, um, I'm curious what your art process is. How do you make your posters?
Oh, great question. Well, for me, it starts with emotion. Um, you you want to connect. I want to connect to people on an emotional level, and that's what art is all about. But at the same time, I'm also an educator, so I want to educate people as well. And it's for that reason that I've been drawn to that 1930s WPA, Works Progress Administration style, because there in the 1930s, during the midst of the Great Depression, there was this jobs program for artists to educate the public. And it was educating the public about the wonders of national parks, see America, or maybe it was to recycle scrap iron or to brush your teeth. But it was all about education and information. So for me, this is a way of tying into art on an emotional level, travel posters. I had this wanderlust as a kid growing up in Alaska to see the rest of the world. So that sense of wonder and wandering, but also education and information. So that's where I start, and that's the realm of art that I work in. Um, so when it comes to things like national park posters, I go to these parks or I have park rangers send me photos of, all right, what's this iconic feature of your place? And I think, all right, how can I turn this into something that stirs the imagination and makes you want to go see this? Because just throwing a picture of the Milky Way in the middle of it, it's not going to inspire anyone. But if you tie into those things that make you want to see beautiful places in the first place, adding the Milky Way and letting people know it's there for you to see, all you have to do is go. That's that's so. There's my process.
And I want to say thank you to the folks out there who are making donations. Thank you to the donations from Kenneth, from Frank. Thank you to all of you that will help us keep the science flowing into the year to come. Thank you. We understand not everyone can give right now. 2020 is the year that only takes and rarely seems to give. If you are someone who actually cares that the stock market is doing so well, which is a deeply confusing thing, please consider giving. And we're here for all of you. Giveaways should be starting soon. Um, Sorry, I'm looking to see what's going on in a chat. So we're going to be starting we're going to be starting giveaways soon. As soon as I understand how we're doing it, I will let you know. I may be running it locally on my computer, which could add a layer of chaos to our day. But I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. Um, so just to ask a nuts and bolts question. What software do you use that allows you to get these amazing edges and stark colors? It looks like cutouts. It's gorgeous.
Right. So I use Adobe Illustrator,
Okay.
and some art is done entirely in Adobe Illustrator, where I've got an electric tablet, and so I just draw straight onto the screen, and then essentially fill those shapes with these bright, bold, vivid colors. Other times, if I'm really going for that sort of hand-drawn, painted lithograph from the 1930s look, I actually draw with pen and ink on paper, and then I use my iPhone to photograph those outlines, put it into Illustrator, and then fill in the colors that way to get all the little bumps and wiggles from the hand-drawn look.
It's it's amazing. And I love the fact, and here Neil deGrasse Tyson would argue with me. Um, I'm looking behind you at what I think is Bryce Canyon up on your dormer.
Oh, Grand Canyon. It was
Grand
for
Canyon.
their 100th anniversary. Yes.
So that isn't 100% astro realistic. You do not have stars in the exact right places in the exact right relative magnitudes.
Well, for that one, it's a view looking off to the northeast over the North Rim, where the Milky Way does rise in that direction. It's got the Great Rift in Cygnus that's visible. and three of the brighter stars in there, which are drawn to mimic various pictographs, do represent Vega, Deneb, and Altair, the summer triangle. Um, with the moon about where crescent, well, okay, yes, the crescent moon, I guess that would have to be before dawn if it was that way. I do try to keep scientifically accurate, but I am not uh, tied to it. If there is something really evocative, I will let the strictness slide.
That makes sense. Um, it's gorgeous.
Thank you. It was for the Grand Canyon's 100th anniversary when they were also designated an international dark sky park, and it was in the style of a Pendleton woolen blanket because they also wanted to make a blanket out of it. And if you've ever grown up in the West, Pendleton Woolen Mills up in Oregon is a famous company for making these blankets that are on
Yeah.
sale throughout the national parks in the West. And one of the requirements of a Pendleton blanket is there is no more than two colors per row. And so that poster is actually drawn in such a way that there's no more
Oh,
than two colors per row. And they made, I think they wound up making about 200 or 300 blankets out of it. And what was neat was I got paid for the design in blankets.
so is that two colors in addition to a background color?
No, it's two colors. There's a couple places in the Milky Way where it looks like it's a third, but it's a blend of the two colors. And
That's what I
so,
was missing. All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
All
So when
right.
it's actually woven, you see the two colors side by side, and so they mimic a blending of the two.
That works.
I was
That's
it's something I've been so fortunate to be able to have actually designed a bunch of those Pendleton blankets. One of which was even for the total eclipse in Grand Tetons. So it's just something I love. My grandmother was a seamstress for them back in the 60s.
now with all the amazing art that you do, you are always bringing your science background to this. And this really became apparent during the uh, 2017 Great American Solar Eclipse. You were there in I don't know how many telecons we suffered through. You were there for all the telecons. And while you were part of this national effort to make it possible for as many people from around the world as could fit within our country, given the restrictions of, well, everything that restricts things, um, to make sure that they could all have a great experience. While we were all planning those activities, you were out there writing a book. And tell us what it was about the Great American Solar Eclipse that brought you to write the book. And I'm going to share a link to this as well.
So the book is Sun, Moon, Earth, and I had been waiting for that eclipse since I was 9. And that's because I was in a 9 year old in Portland, Oregon, when the last total solar eclipse to touch the continental US had come about. And it had gone right over my house. But as a 9 year old, I was terrified. All the news said that if you looked at the eclipse, you'd burn your eyes out. So I thought there were special rays that during the moment of totality would come out. I hid in the house with the curtains drawn and I watched it on TV.
Oh no.
And afterwards realized my mistake. And I so for decades, for 40 years, I thought about this life-changing experience that had been stolen from me because of this misinformation. And when the
Yeah.
2017 eclipse finally came, I wanted to help make sure that there were no other 9 year olds out there hiding inside. And so I set out to write a book about solar eclipses, the wonder of them, the travel to see them, the science, the art, their role within culture, and to bring the art to it as well.
And your Sun Earth Moon appeared on a number of posters. I think it even made its way onto some of the solar glasses. And that experience was one like nothing I've ever dealt with in terms of I don't think there was anyone in North America who wasn't aware on eclipse day that the eclipse was happening.
Yes. And that a total solar eclipse, if you haven't seen one, if you weren't able to go, a total solar eclipse is one of the few things in astronomy that is far better than any photograph. It's a
Yes.
multi-sensory experience. So, I mean, the temperature drops, you feel it on your skin, the birds go quiet, um, colors change. And so this was something that I knew from experience that people don't realize it is so much better than what you might think. And so many people think, well, I live right outside the path of totality. I'll get 99.5%. I don't want to deal with the crowds. That should be good enough. And no, 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 it's not. So, so we were part of this group that was out there to get as many people as possible to get into that path of totality. And I think we did a good job, but I do know that on the day that I drove to the place that I was staying, I stopped off at a town just outside the path, talked to a couple women at the local drugstore that said, "Oh yeah, no, it's not at a good time for us. The pharmacy's not going to be, no one's going to be here, so we need to be on hand." And they wouldn't even go the 10 miles to see it.
Oh,
So my hope is that, well, okay, we get another eclipse in 2024. Maybe that time we will get everybody who decided to pass it up in 2017 because they will have heard from their friends what they missed.
hmm.
And we can get all those people to get into the path of totality.
And we're going to talk about the 2024 eclipse in just a moment. I just want to do a quick station identification and remind everyone you are watching the CosmoQuest Hangoutathon right here on twitch.tv/CosmoQuestX and Now Media Radio. Thank you all for being here. We are currently talking with Dr. Tyler Nordgren, who is an amazing space artist, a PhD research scientist, and we have the experience of being folks who've managed to make it and follow our dreams. But sometimes following dreams is hard. And for CosmoQuest to keep going into the coming year, we have to raise funds. And that's why we're here for 36 hours straight. The $36,000 that we're trying to raise is just the start of what we need to get through the year. It takes us about $150,000 per year to bring you Astronomy Cast, the Daily Space, our citizen science efforts at CosmoQuest, and everything else we do. To help make this happen, please consider making a tax deductible donation today or tomorrow. But we'd rather see it today so we can worry less tomorrow. Now, Tyler, you were talking about the 2024 eclipse. Have you decided where you're going to be yet?
I've I've got an idea. Turns out, so when I left my university job, I moved back to Ithaca, New York, and Ithaca, New York is about 20 miles from that path of totality. But central New York here, as much as I love it,
Yeah.
the weather prospects in April are not the best. There could be sunny skies. It could also be snowing. So, really, if you've got the ability to do so, down towards Mexico or Texas, is really got the best chance of clear skies on that day. And one of the things that's amazing about 2024 is totality passes over so many big cities this time.
Yes.
So San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, Indianapolis, Cleveland, Buffalo, Niagara Falls, Rochester, those are all in the path of totality. And one of the things that I think would be absolutely amazing is to stand in the middle of one of those cities and have 10,000, 100,000 people all looking up and screaming in unison as the sun goes black. I think that would just be a spectacular thing to be a part of that day. So
How many eclipses have you successfully seen?
I've successfully seen probably, I don't know, five, six, seven. I don't really keep track.
How
Um,
often have you been rained out?
I've been rain. I've never been rained out. I've been clouded out. In 2015, I went to the Faroe Islands, these small islands between Scotland and Iceland, and it had been raining all week before. But the morning of, it cleared up just in time. But the air was so saturated with water that when the shadow of the moon came over us, the temperature dropped, and suddenly clouds formed in the mountains all around us 30 seconds before totality. And the clouds
Oh.
parted 30 seconds after totality ended. So it was a freak lunar shadow related weather phenomenon.
Oh, jeez.
But
That
yeah,
hurts the soul.
it does. And so that's the only one that I've completely missed, except for when I was 9. Unfortunately, I missed one this year, and it's because of the pandemic, people haven't been able to travel, and I was supposed to be leading a trip to Tibet in June on the summer solstice to see an annular eclipse. And I've always wanted to go to Tibet. I imagine being up at 14,000 feet on the shore of a lake with the Himalayas off in the distance, and almost overhead the moon passes in front of the sun, leaving this ring of fire. And I decided there were webcams that were recording it, and so I thought, well, okay, I'm stuck here at home. I'll watch it online. And as fate would have it, 30 minutes before the eclipse began, I had a heart attack. And
Oh.
so ra- rather than being in rural Tibet leading a group of people and having a
Yeah.
heart attack, I was at home on my couch, which happens to be about 2 blocks away from an ambulance. So yeah, I was
Yeah.
fine, but I was in a hospital having heart surgery at the moment of,
Yeah.
of annularity. So, you take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
I was actually happy to have missed that eclipse.
And we are happy. I remember seeing that on Facebook because you're one of those crazy people that was Facebooking from a hospital bed.
I was gonna live Facebook this, and as I'm sitting there, and the surgeon's going through my arteries, I'm thinking, oh gosh, I hope I haven't let anyone down by not answering their questions.
And this is what happens to us when they give us PhDs is they
It
make us
is,
feel guilty when we don't answer people's questions.
yeah, yeah. So that's why I got on to let folks know early the next morning, because I didn't want anyone to feel bad or that I had let them down.
I have to admit to being terribly jealous. I have managed to successfully see one partial eclipse from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan
Oh,
back in, I want to say, the summer of 93 or 94.
yep.
And other than that, I have been rained on during
Oh,
totality in 2009. I was clouded out by a singularly tiny cloud described with words I shall not use on air that was directly over the head of me. And, well, I was working with the Weather Channel that day,
oh,
and um, we could hear the people in the stands in the arena we were in around us cheering as they got to see bits of totality, but where we were, we saw none of it.
oh.
So I've been told that where I go in 2024, no one else shall also go. Um, so I'm not sure yet where I'm going to be. We're considering for CosmoQuest just because of visa issues with the US. We may end up going to Canada this time to make it easier for everyone to be able to attend. Um, Other than that, we are still looking to figure it out. And thank you so much, James, for the donation. That is amazing. Thank you so much. Bring a big fan to blow away the clouds. I like your enthusiasm, Andrea. I like your enthusiasm. Um, so you've also gotten to do artwork of a myriad of different observatories from around the world. Have you gotten the chance to visit each of these sites, or are you working from photos?
It's a little of both.
Okay.
So the VLA and VLBA, the very long baseline array, which is separate antennas all around across North America. I've been to some of the antennas,
Hmm.
but places like Alma up in the Atacama in
Yeah.
Chile, that most recently was part of the team that imaged that black hole. Uh, I had wanted to get there, but in the end, the travel just never quite worked out. So it's a little of both. I want to travel to these places when I get commissions to do the artwork. When I did the poster for the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, I went out to Georgia and hiked the trail.
Ah,
But unfortunately, it's become increasingly more difficult, especially this year, to do that. So it's a little of both. I hate it when I have to work from photographs because you just don't get the feeling. And I hate doing artwork that looks too much like a photograph. And so I
yeah.
try to avoid that as well.
And now I have a personal question.
Sure.
Do you do you cabin? Do you RV? Do you tent camp or do you hammock tent camp?
Ooh. Well, I have to admit, I really do like a cabin. I do like a soft bed, and as I'm getting older, I'm finding it more and more comfortable. But one of the trips that I love doing is about every couple of years, I'm the astronomer on a Grand Canyon rafting trip where we spend
Oh,
14 days rafting the Grand Canyon. And there, I've got a little cot set up on a beach and have the stars overhead. And I help tell people how to tell what time it is when you have to get up to pee in the middle of the night by what constellations overhead.
that's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Yeah, I have to admit I am all about the hammock tent, except for the getting in and out of it part.
Yeah.
I love sleeping in a hammock tent, but the older you get, the harder it is to climb in and out sometimes.
Yep. Unfortunately, I'm right there with you. I'm not a Boy Scout anymore.
So we're about to run out of time. Can you share with our audience what the next project is that you're going to be working on?
So right now, I'm working with rangers at the New York State Parks to help promote the state parks here in the Finger Lakes of New York, especially their rich tradition of the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, Roosevelt's tree army from back in the 1930s. And for me personally, it's this idea that conservation pays dividends for generations. And maybe it's about time we did that again.
I think you're right, and I'm thinking with the way the coronavirus is going now, we need something like the New Deal that will help put artists back at work, helping everyone see our nation in all its various ways.
Absolutely. And frankly, we all do better when we all do better. So I think this is important for the future.
Yeah, I agree. So we have 6 minutes left before we go to mines on the 49s. And looking around, you have this nice collection of telescopes on the door behind you. You have a canyon on the dormer. I only see one world given specific attention, and this is Pluto. Is there a story behind that?
So I was an astronomer at Lowell Observatory, which is where Pluto was discovered.
Uh huh.
And when the New Horizons spacecraft made their close flyby of Pluto back in, was that 2015, I was actually rafting the Grand Canyon, and we were passing by Lowell Observatory the morning of the flyby. And the PI on that spacecraft had asked me before the flyby if I'd be willing to do some artwork showing the science that those first images revealed. And so
Hmm.
that's the poster there. And it's one of the things that I try to communicate to folks is that if there is ever a day in which astronauts can be walking on Enceladus, Mars, or Pluto, there are features there that are just as spectacular, if not more so, than any national park. So, what will we see when we finally go there ourselves?
That's That's awesome. And I have to say, Lowell Observatory is a fabulous site. I've only gotten to visit there once, but it's this great combination of these gorgeous trees looking out on the vast plains all around with just these few peaks scattered that the observatories are on. And it's this mix of history and modern telescopes all mixed together across a few peaks. It's really kind of awesome.
And it's also research, but outreach. There's telescopes for people to look through, and they take it as part of their mission to help take the science from the observatory, from the scientists, directly to the public. So I love what they do there. My wife and I were married in Percival Lowell's telescope dome with the telescope overhead, and so I absolutely love it is that wonderful mix of outreach and research.
That is awesome. Now, one last time, where can people go to find all of your work? And are you on social media where they should be following you?
Yes. So you can find my artwork in national parks, go to their bookstores, or you can find it at my website, which is spacearttravelbureau.com. Also tylernordgren.com. But all of my posters are there. They're for sale. Uh, you can find me on Twitter, Night Sky Park, and I'm on Instagram, but I keep forgetting that I'm on Instagram, so that's not the place to find out what I'm doing most recently. But yeah,
And can folks get that shirt you're wearing?
on Spoonflower, the fabric is available, and if you
Excellent.
yes, and if you happen to know your own seamstress, you can get your own shirt. But yeah, look for Great American Eclipse on Spoonflower.
Thank you so much for joining us. Your books, Stars Above, Sun, Earth, Moon, your posters, your fabric on Spoonflower. It's
Thank you. It's a real pleasure, and I love the fact that we are doing this, that you are doing this, and reaching people that otherwise most scientists never talk to.
all are welcome. This is the way we roll at CosmoQuest. All are welcome. Just be kind, show compassion, and do science. This
Yes.
is this is what we do. So thank you. I loved having you on, and no more heart attacks, please. We
Fingers
need
crossed.
we need to get through 2024, and we are both on the same committee again.
Yes.
So many telecons await in our future.
And I am looking forward to it and can't wait to work with you again.
This part is true. Thank you. And I'm now going to flip a couple minutes early over to mines on the 49s. So thank you, Tyler.
Thanks.
All right, we are looking at the Welcome Center, and this is awesome. Do we have a
Yeah,
voice?
yes. Hello. You're only a minute early, so it's not that bad. So yeah, hi. This is Ambius or Elad. Some of you may know me from the server. I've been on the stream before earlier, and I'll be showing you around some of the things that changed in the last hour, or if you haven't caught the last hour, some of the things we're working on the Minecraft server. So first of all, I want to show you what Keeper of Maps has been working on because it's kind of amazing. This is the observatory, the telescope. He promised us in the last hour that he will install the telescope itself and the lens, and there it is. Kind of amazing work, I have to say. Kind of jealous.
It's an obsidian telescope.
Yes, it is obsidian. It's has a nice color to it. He says that the scaffolding are temporary. There's still some work to be done here, not a lot. And there's a sign here. Maybe some of you should follow that link and see where it takes you. Somebody should maybe post that in the chat. So yeah, so great work by Keeper of Maps. I think it's very, very, like, it's very identifiable. As soon as you see it, you know, oh, that's really cool. We also have this, which you may have seen starting to be built at the beginning of the Hangoutathon. It's a really, really big launch pad. Can't wait to see what's going to launch, or rather, what's going to stand on it. And over here, we have something very interesting. Looks kind of like a Greek temple. I'm not really sure what's going to end up here, but it's worth coming back to find out. I think, yeah, Trilines is building it. Maybe it's a library. Very nice. This is some nice architecture. So let's see what's happening in the solar system. Let's go to space. Last we looked at Mars. I think Mars is more or less finished. So I don't think anybody's been doing anything on Mercury. Let's see what's happening in Venus. Yeah, I actually started working a little bit on Venus. The color palette is a bit challenging in a way because there are a lot of gradients and we don't really have that here, but I tried sticking to the color palette. Somebody else is going to have to continue the work or finish it or even change it. I wouldn't be that offended. Oops, I just broke the button. Okay, so let's go back to here and we will replace that button later. Let's go see what's happening with Jupiter, because the work on Jupiter is just incredible. You can see the storm starting to materialize. The big red spot is very familiar. It's very identifiable. I think this is incredible, incredible work. And if we go over to, let's go back to the center, and let's go see how the rings are going on in Saturn, because that was also a big, big project. Wow, look at this.
That's amazing.
The sense of scale is just wow. Oh, and those are like, I don't know how, like, are those lights?
I think they're
No.
light. They're generating light.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's apparently a carpet, but
I didn't know carpets did that.
I did not know either.
I
Light
wonder if
source
there's a
under.
light under the
Oh, okay.
carpet.
Yeah. Pixel Riffs confirms on stream that there's a light source under the carpet, which is kind of a neat trick. Yes, this is really, really cool. Oh, now I see how he's doing it. They're putting like a shroom light and covering that. That's really cool. Nicely done. So yeah, what else do we have here? I understand from Miss Brick Kitten that we now have stations for all of the planets. So let's go see some of the other planets. Visit Titan as well. Maybe there's, yeah, Titan is being currently worked on, I see, by Kiri Ennis. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Very nice skin. Very well done. What else do we have here? Let's go back to the center. We also have Uranus. Uranus is very big. It doesn't seem like anyone's working on it at the moment. Pluto. Miss Birkin didn't inform she was working on other things that aren't planets. But yeah, Pluto is being worked on, and it kind of looks cool. I mean, It's small, but it's so rich in different colors. And I think just because we have such a detailed photo of it now, we know how detailed and varied its color palette is. Okay, so we went to Pluto, we went to Uranus. Let's see how Neptune is going. Neptune is supposed to be very blue. Oh, yes. So yeah, as you can see, like some of the planets haven't been started work on yet, and some of the non-planets and the moon have. Yeah. What else can I show you? Still have a couple of more minutes. Well, there is I don't think we've shown this on the stream. There's like a welcome center for new players here. New players can come in, pick up a book, and read some information about what we're doing, about why we're doing it. And oh, great, yes. Thank you for reminding me, Miss Brick Kitten. There is one thing that might interest you. Let's go back to space. And let's visit Mars. So Mars is more or less complete.
Oh, shoot. We just lost Discord. Hold on, I'm trying to figure out what just happened. I think the channel, I'm getting JavaScript errors on a different computer. I'm afraid that something may have interfered. You're now seeing my desktop. Let me kill that rapidly. Hold on. I lost my mouse. All right, pardon me while I work to fix those technical difficulties. You never know quite what is going to happen when you're doing things live. And apparently, we're working to get our giveaways going, and in the process of trying to launch our giveaways, I seem to have inadvertently crashed. Let me pop this out and get it onto the correct part of the stream. Are you there, Ambius? You'll be back on screen in just a second. All right, you are back on stream.
All right, so I'm not sure which the last part you guys saw, but here we're back at Mars. I was informed that apart from the volcano, someone was here and tried colonizing it. You can see a bunch of potatoes in the ground here. Yeah, this is just one of the many Easter eggs we will be laying around. I know there are several more just lying around the solar system, and we challenge you to find all of them. And also maybe put some in yourself. You're welcome to join us at the server. Someone should be posting the details in the chat right now. And I'm gonna do something I did earlier. I wanted to see just how big the sun is. And as you can see, it doesn't even render all of it. So let's fly around and see just how massive this thing is. And remember, everything is to scale. So the sun and the Earth you saw and all the planets, all the moons are all on the same scale. And we didn't even render like the entire sun because that would be too much, I think, for any server. It's just, I think, the first 250-ish block. But that should give you a sense of scale of how big the sun would be if we could render all of it to scale. Not really sure what the outer part is. Maybe it's the sort of.
Oh, shoot, I found the bug. I lost you again. bug has been determined. Hold on. Um, we'll have Ambius back in just a moment. We lost you again, Ambius. Just a moment. So I've discovered the bug. The bug is I can't connect to two discords on different channels simultaneously from two computers. We're working to get our giveaways up and running. I appear to have broken the system trying to do that. We will do that in just a moment, but first, give us one last tour at all the places that people can go. I'm going to share the link on twitch.tv to sign up to join the server. Where all can people go?
So the first place you'll find yourself when you join the server is right here at the Visitor Center. If you're new to Minecraft, you have a little project explanation library here. You can just pick up any of these books. They all have the same content and read a bit about what we're doing. And if you enter this room, if you enter this room, you can read basic instructions on how to play, like WASD 1 through 9, that good stuff. Once you've got your basics down, you can press this button here. After you've explored the area, of course, and seen the amazing work that people have done around us, you can press this button here and it'll take you to the core of the sun. I was informed that the thing we have here, the scale, is not the sun itself, it's rather just the core. So yeah, the sun is huge, in case you didn't know. And from here, you can get to all the major planets plus one planetoid, I think is the word. And you can go to Mercury. You can go to Venus, which has nice textures to it. You can go to Earth, which amusingly currently has not really been worked on. I mean, you can
Who
go
wants
to the...
to do our own world?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about it earlier in the stream that because everyone knows how the Earth looks like, basically from memory. So first, it's not only a little like, yeah, we've been there, like we've literally all been there, but also it's kind of intimidating because it's easier to mess up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back here. We have Mars. I really like Mars. I think they've done great work here.
Space is dark. This is the lesson we have learned. Space is dark.
Yes, ambient lighting would have been.
We need to make them all Dyson spheres or something. Yes. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if Minecraft even supports ambient lighting, but yeah. So things I would like to see, if anybody's up to the task, is the two little potato moons. I know that like in this scale they should be just like a couple of blocks. Okay, what else do we have here? So after Mars, we have the asteroid belt, is still being the...
Let's save the rest of the solar system for our next mines on the 49s.
Yes.
So this has been amazing. What is the next big thing you're looking forward to building, Ambius?
Honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing... there are a couple of things. I'm looking forward to seeing what's Jupiter going to look like. And I'm looking forward to seeing the rings. I think the rings are just going to be the crown jewel of this build, because there's so much you can do with it.
And I'm with you. I can't wait to see what comes next. And I'm glad you're part of all these crazy and amazing things that we're working to do this weekend. And thank you for being part of our community. I'm going to let you go ahead and get back to building and bring on our next guest. Any parting words?
No, thank you. This is fun. Glad to be a part of it.
All right. So I will see you later.